Citizen Television. On to business news. And President William Ruto has committed Kenya to a $100 million investment in the continent's multilateral institution. Now, the amount, which translates to about 13.2 billion shillings, is part of Kenya's move to increase its shareholding in the institution in what the president termed as a vote of confidence. The funds will be invested in the African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, and the Trade Development Bank. The president's commitment came during the official opening of the Africa Development Bank's 59th summit, where other heads of state reiterated their frustration with the current multilateral setup. Let's get more from our very own Jimmy Mbogo.
To the left, as they proceed to their seat, so that we'll have...
President William Ruto's sentiments at the opening of the AFDB annual meeting came as a pleasant surprise to the AFDB delegation, with Kenya committing to deepen its shareholding in the institution. The president making a 13.2 billion shilling investment commitment to be undertaken by Kenya in the next 3 years, which will be spread among 3 African multilaterals. The president committing a further $20 million or 2.6 billion shillings for the Africa Development Fund, the concessional wing of Africa Development Bank, a move that would make Kenya the highest regional contributor in unlocking additional funding for high-priority development projects.
We must invest in these institutions for others to invest in them. Kenya has made the decision that over the next 3 years, to believe in our institutions, we must believe in them first.
A G7 collectively pledged $150 million to AGIA. The G7 also pledged support for the callable capital increase of the African Development Bank. The G7 also signaled strong support for the successful 17th replenishment of the African Development Fund.
And on the back of the IDA meeting in the country earlier this month, President Ruto once again raised his push for a substantial replenishment of the Africa Development Fund by at least $25 billion or 3.3 trillion shillings to increase its capacity to continue providing concessional finance to the least developed African countries. Ruto called on donor partners and development partners to scale up their investment in the continent by rechanneling special drawing rights, SDRs, through the Africa Development Bank, the premier development financial institution. Sentiments echoed by Rwanda's President Paul Kagame as the push for reforms of the global financial architecture intensified.
We are talking about the architecture of, international financial architecture. Therefore, in mind, we have the architects. So what did the architect have in mind when they provided us with the architecture we have to deal with? They must have had their own interests.
We have been profiled negatively for far too long. If you can work on an Africa Credit Agency that will help put factual information into the financial architecture so that this unnecessary risk profiling is reduced.
As President William Ruto makes financial commitment to continental multilateral institution, his commitment comes at a time when the country is already struggling in meeting its expenses in areas such as education and health sector, begging the question whose interest and what do Kenyans stand to gain in some of these commitments. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.